Okay, welcome to another episode. This is going to be aggression part 3. So, aggression part 1, we talked about aggression, what aggression actually was, and came to the conclusion based on looking at 3 different sources. One of these sources being a very reliable authority in his field for sure, and just plain simple common sense. Aggression is just a violent action that could be just a strategy to deal with a bunch of different types of situations. Now, how you expand from that, that could be normal, abnormal. It could even be pathological. That's, your more very, very rare cases. But normally, you're looking at aggression as being a normal behavior, normal strategy. And again, if you want to go more in depth into what aggression is, I made an entire episode on that just 2 episodes ago. And the previous episode, I talked about aggression part 2, where I kind of break it down a little bit more. And and then I talk about fear potentially being the source, as it is claimed all across the industry. Right? It is claimed that fear is the source of all aggression. So in the previous episode, I talk about that, and I talk about how much of that is true, how much of that is not entirely true. So again, more details on that. This episode, I want to focus more on how to, quote unquote, fix it, how to address the aggression. Okay, so if you are just listening to this episode, I would suggest listening to the 2 previous episodes, part 1 and part 2 of aggression. I might give you a more complete idea of what I'm going to be talking about now. But I'm still going to be going over how to fix it, how to address the aggression, a very common topic of concern in the dog training industry. Okay, a lot of people struggle with this one. A lot of pet owners struggle with this one, and I'm going to go over how to address this. Okay, but first, just remember, I got to pitch my products. So make sure you sign up for sign up for the podcast, subscribe to the podcast. That is, make sure you share the podcast. If you like one of these episodes, share it. It really helps me out. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. I got probably like hundreds of videos on there on different topics, from protection training to pet obedience, competitive obedience, a bunch of stuff. Obviously, go to the Instagram and the Facebook platforms as well. Follow me on there. Dog training is my passion, for a bunch of stuff, informational stuff, and a bunch of funny memes on dog training. Now, let's talk about this, okay? How to address aggression. So the common thing is, a common question, this big thing is, how do we fix the aggression? Now let's stop for a moment and let's talk about this. Fixing, the word fixing implies something is wrong, right? Fixing implies something is broken. Now think about that, okay? Why would I want to fix a strategy that helps the individual? Okay, think about this. Now, before you make up your mind about what this episode is going to be about, just think about this. Okay, we've determined it is rational, it is perfectly normal and acceptable for every single species to have the built-in strategy of aggression to preserve itself, to survive, okay, to coexist with its environment. It is perfectly normal. If an animal didn't show aggression, it will probably cease to exist, or it will live a very, very difficult life. Like even your tamest animals show aggression. Okay, look at your prey animals. Your prey animals. You look at birds. You look at rabbits. Okay, everything basically has aggression built in to live, to preserve itself, and to deal and cope with its environment. So aggression is it's normal. It's perfectly acceptable for an animal to show aggression in the right set of circumstances. So now I'm talking about normal aggression, obviously. Okay, so let's. I really want you to think about this. To say let's fix aggression implies that aggression is a bad word. There's something wrong with it. Now I know. We're talking about dogs. We're not talking about wild animals here. We're talking about domesticated animals. They live in our homes. So I'm only 5 minutes into this episode, so I'm not saying, hey, forget about it. It's just normal. You're gonna have to deal with it. But I want you to really think about this, okay? So what I do when I look at aggression is, rather than immediately jump on the dog's throat and go, what is wrong with you? We need to fix this. We need to figure out every possible way to address this. Rather than jump to that conclusion, first I want to know what are you using this for? Like how is this strategy helping you out? Then I go into a little bit more detail. Now I think, okay, I mean, if it is acceptable, then I'm not going to fix the aggression. If it is acceptable, I need to maybe look at what's triggering it. If you tell me your dog is showing aggression and you want me to fix it, and I determine that the reason your dog is showing aggression is because your other dog is harassing it, because your other dog keeps taking its food away from it, because your other dog is constantly like stalking it and bullying it. Okay, this happens, by the way. Okay, people with multiple dogs, sometimes they target the wrong dog. They go, oh, this dog is just aggressive. When in reality, that's the one dog that is being bullied and is just using aggression as a strategy. Okay, I'm not saying that's the only reason it happens, but I have seen that happen. But if that is the case, then I'm going to look at this and go, okay, what is it that you're getting out of this? What's the reason for this strategy? What's this accomplishing? Now, if I determine that it is the environment that is triggering this response, then I need to educate the owner and go, okay, this is the reason why your dog is showing this aggression. Okay, it's your other dog is harassing this dog, or it could be your children are harassing your dog. I've seen and I've heard of this happen. My wife has a friend several years ago that they just kept going through dogs, and the reason they kept going through dogs is because they had a young child that just had no boundaries with dogs. So these dogs would just constantly do all kinds of things to these dogs that the owners deemed cute and adorable and acceptable. So constantly my wife would show me these pictures of her friend taking pictures of her child on top of the dog, hugging the dog, squeezing the dog. And one of those times, eventually it was bound to happen, we found out that the dog bit the child. So what they did is they got rid of the dog. They got rid of the dog. I believe they put the dog down because the dog bit the child. And then months later, they got another dog. So they got another dog, and the same thing started to happen. They started to take those cute pictures again. Now the child is a little bit older, but now the child did not have any sense of boundaries. My wife did talk to her. Okay, my wife did address this to her. And all she got in return was basically, you don't know what you're talking about. Right? It's adorable. This woman was getting a lot of support from her friends and her family, saying, "Oh my God, that's adorable. Yes, dogs and children are great friends." And what happened? You guessed it. That second dog also bit that child. Okay, and they got rid of the dog. The dog got put down. I know that second dog for sure got put down. And so now, if you're looking at that, and if you bring me that dog, that's your dog, and you're telling me about this, I'm going to tell you, your dog's response was probably, and I'm saying probably because I didn't work with these people. I'm just going off of, the like the I'm just like the third party here. I didn't work with them. I didn't talk to them. So I'm going off of the timeline of how this was happening. Obviously, if I'm getting more detail, and I do definitely determine the child is the cause of the aggression, then I'm gonna tell you, hey, your dog's response is perfectly normal. What needs to change is your child. Your child needs to learn better ways to communicate with that dog. You need to impose more boundaries on that child, because it doesn't matter how many dogs you get, at some point you're gonna get this, right? But in that instance, you to say that you want to fix the aggression would be very unreasonable, because that would mean you want to take away that dog's coping mechanism for dealing with this type of environment. But let's say it's a different case. Let's say maybe the child doesn't even touch the dog, and the dog's bouts of aggression happen to be a little bit more unwarranted. They happen maybe more frequently. Then now we're dealing with aggression that is, a little bit more on the, you know, maybe not so much a coping mechanism for its environment, maybe not so much as a strategy to deal with its environment, but maybe now it's something that definitely needs to be addressed. Okay, so I'm going to look at that dog and I'm going to go, okay, it could be a number of reasons why. I'm not going to go over every single reason why in this episode. That would take forever. And if I do go over all of those details in this one episode, this episode is going to last forever, and then you're going to lose interest at the 20-minute mark anyway. That's usually about how long my attention span is. So I want to keep it nice and short. But anyway, so it could be a multitude of reasons as to why the dog could be acting aggressive in a different case. Now, to say, okay, we need to fix this, then now we can be a little bit more, now we have a little bit more room here, more wiggle room. Give you an example. If I have a client that tells me my dog is acting aggressive and this is the aggression, okay? The aggression is somebody knocks on the door, he loses his mind. If somebody comes in, he's going to bite them. So now we have a dog that is displaying potentially territorial aggression, not necessarily, but it could be. Just because somebody knocks on the door and comes in and the dog barks, that doesn't automatically qualify as territorial. It can be, but it doesn't necessarily qualify as such. But let's just say that that's happening. Now I can go, okay, so your dog is responding in an aggressive manner due to this thing that is happening in the environment. Okay, good, but again, we're looking at this as, does this make sense? I could say, yes, this kind of makes sense. Okay, so if it makes sense, it is a strategy. Okay, for that animal, for that dog, it is a strategy. And it is built in some dogs, a lot of dogs. And now rather than me saying, okay, we're going to fix it, rather what I'm going to say is we're going to give it a different strategy. Okay, we're going to give it maybe a different strategy to keep it either occupied or to convey to the animal, hey, dude, you don't need to do that. Okay? Like, I could tell that dog, don't do that. Okay? I can definitely communicate this with that dog, provided that I have a good relationship and a very consistent set of communication ways with this animal, right? So if I can communicate with this and I'm consistent with it, and there's definitely a relationship here, then yes, I can convey to that animal, hey, dude, that is unwarranted. We do not do that. We're going to knock that off. Okay? And on top of that, I can give it a different strategy. That different strategy could be, hey, dude, I know you get mad, you get angry. Go to your place. Okay? Go to your place, hang out on your place. Personally, I kind of like that. I like my dog being a little bit sharp when somebody's knocking on the door. Okay? Yes, it's nice to have a friendly dog that you don't have to worry about your guests getting bit, but I like my dogs a little sharp when somebody is at the door. not something I particularly enjoy if I'm not expecting anybody. So when my dog gets a little bit sharp, I'm like, hey, dude, thank you. Right? But I also don't want my dog scratching my door. I don't want my dog to be a liability. If I do have a guest coming in, I don't want my guest to feel uncomfortable. I don't want my guest to get bit. This does become an inconvenience. But what I can tell my dog is, dude, hey, be angry from your place bed. And I can do that, and I have done that. Okay, I've done this with clients' dogs, and I've done this with my dog. So I can tell you it's a great strategy. What I'm letting that dog know is, I know you're pissed, okay? Do it from your bed. And now if I do have, like a crew that needs to work on the house, this has happened. I don't know these people, right? It's construction crew working on something in the house. I'm okay with my dog being pissed right there on his place. Okay, I'm kind of edgy myself. I don't know these people, and now my dog is just very keeping an eye on them. I mean, from the moment they come in, and he's just angry and pissed off, like at the very edge of his place bed, just waiting for that release to launch. Now, depending on you, like you might think that's terrible, that's a liability. I'm fond of it, so I don't see a problem with it. My dog has really solid obedience. So all the times that I've had this happen, I've never had my dog, break without me telling him free. So to me, it's not an issue, right? But let's say it's a different thing. Let's say it's not territorial. Let's say it's fear, right? Fear motivated. So if it is fear motivated, right, and maybe my dog is not like angry and pissed, and that's why he's just wanting to tear these people up as soon as they come in. But maybe my dog is more very nervous, and so the knocking on the door suddenly triggers like an alarm bark. Oh my God, there's somebody here, type of behavior. Now person comes in. Now this dog is barking, backing away, barking. Again, we have now another strategy. Dog is letting us know, I am very uncomfortable with this person coming in, and I'm going to show teeth, and I'm going to do everything I can to try to convince this person that I'm not to be messed with. I'm nothing to be messed with, and look at my teeth, look at how ugly I am, please go away, right? So if I do determine that it is that the strategy is, man, like I just want you to go away, then maybe I can address it as counter conditioning. This is just an example, okay? I'm using the knocking on the door, people coming in, because it's a common one. So I could look at this and go, let's give you a different coping mechanism here. Okay, I could still tell you what to do. I could still redirect your behavior to something else, but maybe I could also work on counter conditioning. Maybe I can address your unreasonable fear of somebody coming in and grabbing you and doing stuff to you. Maybe I can address that in that manner. Okay, again, I'm looking at it as what's the strategy? You're using it as a strategy. What are you trying to deal with? Can we give you a different strategy to deal with that? Can we clarify any misunderstandings? Okay. Now, if I have a dog that just charges at people when I'm walking it outside, again, I might go, okay, what's the strategy? Look, I might do some counter conditioning if it is fear motivated, but I could also go, dude, don't do that. We're not doing that, okay? Let's do something else instead. Let's focus on heal instead. And I have worked with clients like that too, where their dogs, I remember this one client, her dog, just big dog, and the clients were elderly, right? They were not in their prime, but the dog was a big freaking dog. The dog had already bit a child in their neighborhood. It had bit one of their guests. The dog had just had aggression towards anything, basically anything that moved. And they took the dog to this dog trainer. They spent thousands of dollars. The trainers didn't help him, didn't help the dog at all. And the dog ended up biting one of their trainers. So now the dog accumulated an additional bite history. And the dog was just as bad as it was when they dropped it off. And the trainers told them, yeah, we can't fix your dog. Your dog, your dog's just never gonna change. So what I did is I came along, I helped them out, and I told them, we don't need to change your dog. Okay, whatever reason that might be, we don't need to change who he is. We can give him a different strategy instead. So rather than try to fix it, and I believe that's what was wrong with the trainers that they went to. They were trying to fix it. And of course, thousands of dollars later, they couldn't fix it because to this dog, this strategy was perfectly acceptable. So why would he change that? Like you're trying to tell that dog, hey, dude, change that strategy. Let's get rid of this strategy, and let's convince you that everything is great. And I was like, no, you can't convince me of that. I'm perfectly okay with this as a strategy to deal with my situation here. So all I did is I told them, hey, we don't need to fix it. We don't need to change it. We're just gonna keep the dog occupied on something else. And we're basically going to tell them that's unacceptable, okay? So what we did is rather than just hammer into the dog and go, hey, that's unacceptable, that's unacceptable, that's unacceptable, rather than just focusing on that, we told that dog, dude, don't change. You can hate people, you can hate dogs, and you can hate children, but we're going to teach you a very solid heel, okay? So you're going to have to focus on the heel. And and we used that as a way of letting that dog know, hey man, when you come out for a walk, your job is not to go, I hate you and I'm gonna bite you. Your job is to just focus on the walk. Okay, we're gonna keep you occupied. We're gonna interrupt those bouts of aggression. We're going to interrupt that moment you focus on something to get ugly. We're going to interrupt it, and we're going to give you something else to do. We did that over and over, and the dog did so much better, way better than what the previous trainers told them would happen. The previous trainers completely flat out gave up on the dog, gave up on the clients, and didn't even bother to give them their money back. Okay, the dog did not. This really upsets me about the industry. There is so much incompetence in this industry. It is ridiculous how anybody could call themselves a dog trainer and not produce a single thing, but can still collect a paycheck. Like what other industries does that happen? I guess it happens in other industries too, but these trainers told them, yeah, so it turns out your dog bit one of our trainers. So there's that. And, oh yeah, this is what they told him. Oh yeah, and by the way, yeah, we can't fix your dog. And your dog will never be able to be walked again. And, your dog should just stay inside his whole life. You should have his own room. Dead serious. That dog had his own room. So that if they did have guests, that dog would just spend the entire day in his room. And then they were told, and for outdoor time, you need to back tie him to your fence for about 15 minutes a day so he can enjoy some fresh air, and then bring him inside. I could not believe when they told me this. And, and these people spend money that they didn't have to help their dog, and these jackasses not only not help their dog, but actually left them worse than when it was when they dropped them off. Now the dog had a bite history and no improvement and nothing to show for. But anyways, I'm kind of rambling a little bit and I'm ranting, so let's get back on topic. So all I did with that dog is we told him, you don't need to change, okay? You can be pissed at everybody, but when we say heal, you're going to heal, okay? And how did that work? That worked wonderfully. We had this dog healing with them, okay, with the elderly people. I wasn't even like the one doing it. I wasn't the one that been like, oh, I'm going to take over and I'm going to train the dog. And now the dog listens to me because, I impose the rules. So the dog now respects me. No. We had the dog do this with the client. The client did the walk. And when we did this on our final test, we had dogs, we had people, we had unplanned distractions. Like we had a lady with her stroller, her two babies in the stroller, and her dog attached to her. And the dog was going crazy. And this dog, my client's dog, just kept healing. We took that responsibility away from that dog. Like, dude, you don't have to worry about that. You do not have to worry about that. We took that responsibility away from him. So anyway, yes, in some instances you can go, we're not doing this. Okay, let's do this instead. In some instances you can go, okay, can we give you a different strategy? In some instances we can go, can we address any misunderstanding that you have about this situation? Okay, so you need to look at it that way. And in some instances, it's not the dog. In some instances, the dog is doing something perfectly acceptable, and you need to address the environment. You need to address the external factor, right? So you have to be very careful with the term fixing, because again, fixing automatically implies the dog is always wrong. Okay. Another word that drives me up a freaking wall is this one, rehabilitation. How many times you hear this in dog training? Rehabilitation, right? It's such a fancy word that sounds so cool. It's just rehabilitation. When do we rehabilitate? We rehabilitate when something is very bad, right? Like with humans, we go, we're going to do some rehabilitation. That means, maybe physically you need some rehab work on your body, because it needs a lot of fix. It needs a lot of recoup. We also rehabilitate severe conditions or severe addictions, right? Something is very wrong. So there's a behavior pattern that needs to dramatically change. But in dogs, we go, okay, we're going to rehabilitate. Again, like that automatically implies there is something seriously wrong with your dog. There might not be anything wrong with your dog. If you get a Great Pyrenees, okay, if you're not familiar with that breed, if you get a Great Pyrenees, if you get a dog that has been bred to be territorial, okay, if you get a dog that has been bred to be very sporty, very 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 drivey, very sporty, and not necessarily to be like a team player necessarily. If you get a dog like that, okay, but let's go with the guardian of the flock with the Great Pyrenees example. If you get a dog that is particularly normally bred for territorial behavior, there might not even be anything wrong with your dog. It's just how it was wired genetically. So what are you going to rehabilitate there? Okay, rehabilitation, this word rehabilitation puts all the responsibility on the dog. It's really not always the case, okay? It's about understanding what is happening and understanding that aggression is a normal behavior in many instances. So we're going to wrap it up for this one for the moment. I believe I pretty much touched on the main things I wanted to go over. Just remember, fixing rehabilitation implies there is something wrong, and there is nothing wrong with aggression. Okay, it can be perfectly normal. You just need to look at other factors. Okay, maybe we can't help the dog. Maybe we can't address the environment. Again, remember to subscribe to the YouTube channel, the podcast. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and I'll see you on the next episode.